Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken here. We're back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. Very excited today to bring you a friend of mine, Marcus Sheridan, who is an author and a business person. His most recent book, Endless Customers, comes out, believe it or not, today, if you're listening to the episode on the very first day it gets released. And he's going to be talking about all the different ways to achieve that goal of endless customers. I know, wouldn't it be nice to have so many customers you didn't know what to do with? Well, Marcus is going to give us ideas on how to create an experience that absolutely would do just that. Now, before we get into the interview, a quick announcement. If you've got an amazing story that you want to share about customer service or experience, or you have a question you want me to answer, please reach out to me on any of the social channels. I'm pretty much everywhere. And if it is a question, please use the hashtag Ask Shep. I'll answer the question there on this show or perhaps in my newsletter, the Shepherd Letter. And it is a free newsletter. All you need to do to subscribe is go to my website, hyken.com, HYKEN.com, and you can get a free subscription at the same time. Check out our research. That is also free. We just give it away. Isn't that a great price? Free. I love it. We give away the annual research that I do, and there's lots of ideas and tips and stats and facts about the way people buy and what they're thinking. So take advantage of that. And now it's time to talk to Marcus Sheridan. Are you ready? Marcus, welcome to the show.
Shep, I am so happy to be with you, sir.
Well, I am happy to be with you. So I want everybody to know, you and I think the first time we ever met was at Social Media Marketing World. Would that be right? It had to be
Michael
about 10 years.
Stelzner's events. That's right. It's been a minute. Yeah.
At least that. And we've seen each other several times. I've been a huge admirer of your book, the last book, They Ask, You Answer. Very excited about the new book because this is like right up our alley. Endless customers. Okay. And
who doesn't want that?
I know. Who doesn't want that? And if you're listening to this episode, the day it comes out, just go straight over to Amazon, because it's there. It releases on that day. I'm kind of excited that we get to do this a little ahead of time so we can make it happen on that day. I'm very excited. So you have a great background in that what we talk about today is not based on theory. It's not based on, like, I feel blessed to be able to have worked with so many companies and learn from them. You actually had and still have your own company. And that's where it all started, was how you took a very competitive product, which was pools, building and selling pools to go into people's backyards or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of competition, a lot of landscape companies that do this. And yet you somehow excelled and became like the number one dude and number one company in doing this. So let's take just a few seconds and look at that background so we can give some, a point of credibility before we get moving into the concept.
I'll give the 60 seconds fast summary. I started a pool company with two buddies in 2001. We were growing it, and then 2008 happened. Market collapses. Looks like we're going to lose everything. But the beauty behind pain and suffering, right, as you know, Shep, is it forces us outside of our comfort zone. We start to do things that otherwise we wouldn't have done. And so that's when I really started to learn about the changing buyers. Like, what do buyers want? And everything that I was reading said they want answers. They want their fears addressed. They've got concerns. And I knew how I was. And so I said to my two business partners, I said, listen, here's what we need to do. We need to become the best teachers in the world when it comes to, in our case, fiberglass swimming pools. I said, we're going to be like the Wikipedia of fiberglass pools. And so I brainstormed every single question I'd ever received as a pool sales guy, because that's what I was doing. And we addressed those online through text, through video. And within a couple of years, we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world, like literally in the world. And it just exploded the business. And it was so extraordinary. I said, everybody needs to know about this. And so I started writing about it. And eventually that became They Ask, You Answer. And now the framework of They Ask, You Answer, which has now become, of course, Endless Customers with the new book release, has been embraced by over 100,000 companies around the world. And if you want to become the most known and trusted brand in your market, it is the guide for that.
Yeah. Answering all the questions your customers could ever have.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's not, and it's Shep, it's not just the questions. It's like, how do they want to learn? How do they want to behave? How do we align with them? Right? Because there's so many things that cause buyers to get frustrated. And this is during the buyer's journey and also after they've bought, right? That can dramatically, doing all this. What's cool about this, of course, it's very much aligned with customer experience because the customer experience starts when they're vetting you
Yeah.
long before you've met them, long before you've shaken their hand and they filled any form on your website out. That experience is happening. And the question is when they're vetting you, which we know, by the way, 80% of the buyer's journey is done before they fill out that form on your website, before they call you, on average 80%, which is pretty extraordinary because everybody's become an infovore and everybody wants to learn, right? And just do all their legwork. But what we know is during that period, they're forming all these opinions. And if you're going to win that period, can't be like everybody else. And that's really what this book is about. It's showing you how a very intentional way that you can be different, you can be disruptive, you can win that trust, you can stand out.
I'll tell you one thing you did that was very disruptive is you basically told everybody who your competitors were and you said
Yeah.
nice things about
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
explain that to me, Lucy. No.
Yeah. Yeah. We did all
It's
types of crazy
yeah. By
things.
the way, for those millennials out there and Gen Zs, when I say that, I was Ricky Ricardo
That was a good
imitating
Ricky.
how he talked to Lucy and I Love Lucy, a show that was even it was created before I was even born.
And my daughters love that show because they are really into old shows with my wife and they do that together. And that was a good one. Good old Ricky. And so yeah, I did lots of things. Look, if you take it like this, any question anyone is asking you, it means they're searching about it. And my sense was, okay, so if they're asking me about it, if they're saying things to me like, who else would you recommend other than yourself, Marcus? Like, why would I hide that information? You see, there's this thing called the internet. They're going to find the information. Buyers aren't dumb. They are going to get the information they want. And so constantly you have to ask yourself, and I'm really serious about this, Shep, is do I want them to learn the thing from me? Or do I want to learn it from someone else? I also give another example in the book, and I've done this with other companies since then. This is a really wonderful form of disruption. And I didn't talk about this in the previous editions of They Ask You Answer, but one time this is like a decade ago, and nobody had ever done this. I was in a grocery store and I was looking at the magazine aisle for whatever reason, and I saw this Motor Trend Car of the Year magazine. You've seen those, right? Motor Trend Car of the Year. And so I was like, you know what they don't have is like the Motor Trend Pool of the Year awards. So I said, what if I took all the manufacturers in my space and you want to view it, Shep, like I was a Ford dealer selling Ford and I was competing against Chevrolet, Toyota dealers, etc., right? So I said, what if I came up with an award system for all the best swimming pool shapes and sizes within the fiberglass pool industry? And so I created a series of content that gave out awards. Best kidney shaped pool, best Roman shaped pool, best diving pool. And I was giving these awards out to competitors that I was selling against. But what happened was by doing this, these articles that I was producing started to get a ton of traction. People were really interested in them. And then I realized I needed to do them every year. And what was crazy at first, the manufacturers, because these were the big dogs, they didn't know who I was. They were squawking at the idea. And before I knew it, they were like literally reaching out to me, some, 30-something-year-old pool guy in Virginia. And they were saying, hey, I see that we're not on your award for best such and such pool. Would you like to come out to the factory? We can give you a tour because we think we have a pool that should be on your list this year. Think about that. I mean, that's crazy, right? But
Yeah.
these were people I was selling against and I was giving awards to.
Wow. I love that. Is this going to be in the new book as well, this background story?
What I just shared with you. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. In the pool story, totally, because it's just foundational to everything that I have learned about being different, disrupting your industry, giving buyers what they want, providing an extraordinary customer experience throughout the entire buyer's journey.
Yeah. So in one of my books, Cult of the Customer, I opened the first chapter with the great story. I call it, it's not a great story. It's a good story, but it's a story of the great genie.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to give you the 30-second version. Genie comes to business land, and with the little lamp, he's in business land in this little lamp, and somebody picks it up. There's 3 entrepreneurs hanging out in the park. They're all getting ready to open an ice cream store. And so somebody rubs the lamp, and out pops the genie, and the genie says, wow, I'm going to usually grant 3 wishes, but since there's 3 of you, I'll grant you each one a wish. However, the wish has to actually be a legitimately good wish that is reasonable and will work. And they all thought about it, and they're all opening up their ice cream stores. So the first person says, you know what he says, I would like to have the best ice cream in all of business land. I know people line up, and I'll have endless customers, no pun intended. Okay, it was your title of the book. I'll have endless customers because of my ice cream. And the genie thinks about it, says, nope, not going to grant you that wish, because even with the best ice cream, I can't promise you that. And that you'll have customers and that it'll be successful. And the second guy says, you know what I want? I want the best location. I know with the best location, I think customers will find me, and then I'll be successful. And the genie says, not even with the best location. I don't think you're going to get as many customers as you want. And the third entrepreneur thinks for a moment, and she says, I emphasize the she part, always gets a laugh when I'm in front of a live audience. She says, you know, I'd like a great location. I'd like to have the best ice cream, but you know what? I only want one thing: endless customers. Okay. Now let's start there and work backwards. But that's exactly what we want. We all want customers. Steve Blank, brilliant mind from, I think, Stanford University, said on entrepreneurship, he said, you know, without customers, you don't have a business. Mm-hmm. Oh, is that brilliant?
You don't. And the thing about it is, Shep, it's getting harder to get customers across the board. We're seeing so many changes, right? So give you an example. For 20 plus years, Google and search were the greatest marketing tools, other than, let's say, word of mouth and things like that. But it's like, in terms of like, as a marketing tool, Google search, greatest thing marketers have ever seen, ever found up to that point in many ways. And now we're seeing, because of AI and because of this whole zero-click phenomenon, because of everything that's happening, that's changing around us, like, you can't build your house on Google anymore. It's getting harder with Google Ads as well. And so you're seeing a ton of businesses that are saying, I'm just having a lead problem. I'm not getting the leads that I used to get. I'm spending all this money. This is concerning me, because they're not seeing like what's happening around them. Because fundamentally, as buyers, we are changing the way we use this thing called the internet, and the way we use AI, and the way we get recommendations, and the way we find out about companies, and the way we do this research, right? And so what it means is, you got to build an extraordinary brand today. And if you're going to build an extraordinary brand where people know you, like really know you, and it's not just a matter of you spending all the money in the world just so that they show up to your website, well, you got to be willing to do things differently than the marketplace. And if there's one thing I know to be true, Shep, is you can stand out today by breaking the rules of your space. There are so many rules that are meant to be broken. And if you're just courageous in that regard, then you can just do things that haven't been done in your space. And really, in a lot of ways, the book is a call to that. And specifically, there's 4 what I call pillars of a known and trusted brand that we discuss in the book.
Well, here's what I want to do.
Yes.
I want to take a short break, and when we come back, you're going to tell us what those 4 pillars are. Oh, look at this. We're cliffhanger. We're coming right back. We're talking with Marcus Sheridan, who is not only an outstanding guy, an incredible marketer. He understands the customer experience. He's written an incredible best-selling book, and his brand new book, Endless Customers, comes out today. Get it. Don't wait. Go to Amazon. We're coming right back. Don't go away. Shep Hyken here with an offer that won't cost you a cent. You may have heard me talk about my annual customer service and experience research. We've surveyed thousands of customers matching the U.S. Census for age, gender, ethnicity, and geography, and we find out what customers love, hate, and want in a customer experience. What's the number one customer experience that almost every customer desires? What makes them come back? What makes them leave? Why won't they fill out surveys? What do they think of AI? Well, these questions and more are answered in the research. You can download the full report by going to Hyken.com and clicking on the research tab at the top. Like I said, it won't cost you a cent, but it may make you or save you thousands and thousands of dollars when you understand your customers' expectations. Again, the website is www.hyken.com.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We're back on Amazing Business Radio talking with Marcus Sheridan, the author of Endless Customers. And as we were taking a break, I cut you off. It was a cliffhanger. The 4 pillars of a known and trusted brand. You were about to share with us. You're going to impart your wisdom.
Yeah, let's talk about
wise one.
Yes, and they sound on the surface, Shep. They sound so basic, and they are, but very few apply them. Here we go. Pillar number 1, you got to be willing to talk about, say, online, what others in your industry aren't willing to say. So in other words, what are you saying online, through social, on your website, etc., that nobody else is talking about? They just wouldn't go there if they were you. That's number 1. Number 2, you got to be willing to show through video what others in your space aren't willing to show. So number 1, say. Number 2 is show. Right? So what video are you doing that nobody's doing in your space, that nobody would say, golly, I can't believe, no way I could do that. Okay. Number 3, you got to be willing to sell in a way that nobody's willing to sell, or at least the majority are not willing to sell. And then finally, number 4 is you've got to be more human, especially in this time of AI and technology, than others are willing to be. Those are the 4: say, show, sell, and be more human. And if you survey most companies and say, how many of these are you truly doing differently and more consistently than 95% of your competitors, they're going to say, I'm not doing any of them.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to put you on the spot. And you can use your pool company if you want as an example, or maybe there's a brand that you know of. The first brand, by the way, that came to mind is Dollar Shave Club. I don't know if you're familiar with their commercials, and now they're back doing the fun commercials again. But can you give me a quick example of each one of these?
Yeah. So when it comes to say what others aren't willing to say, very easy. Number one reason in the world why people leave a website is because they can't find what they're looking for. The number one thing they're looking for that they can't find is cost and price information. And so one thing that you can easily do as a business that almost no one in your industry probably does well is really openly discuss cost and price. And it doesn't mean that you have to say exactly what you cost and price, but you have to teach value of your industry. What drives cost up, down? What drives cost up? What drives it down? Why are some companies expensive? Why are some companies cheap? You really have to teach people how to buy. And just doing that alone makes you very different. And so you can do that with a great pricing page. And by the way, in the book, I've got this system called the perfect pricing page, where you really teach, there's 17 points to it, how you create the perfect pricing page. 90% of industries as a whole still don't want to talk about that, even though everybody wants to know it, Shep. So that's one very easy one. Okay.
Now, show what others aren't willing to show.
Yeah. So perfect case in point, when we were manufacturing fiberglass swimming pools, we were the first manufacturer that showed our entire manufacturing process from A to Z, so much so that, Shep, if you today wanted to start your own fiberglass swimming pool manufacturing company, you could have watched those videos, because there was a series of 8 videos, 10 minutes long, 80 minutes total in production time, where we taught you how to do this. And the reason why we show this to the world is because we know there's really, for the most part, no such thing as secret sauce. The other manufacturers didn't want to show it. We said, we're going to show it. And because we were willing to show it, then suddenly everybody was saying, that's the only manufacturer that's willing to share exactly how they make their pools. I want to do business with them. So a very simple example, and we've got lots of others in the book, but showing what others aren't willing to show, that's a classic right there.
Yep.
Okay.
Sell in ways that others aren't willing to sell.
Number one way to do this is by aligning yourself with this really powerful trend that is 75% of all buyers today, Shep, say they would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. Now, what does that really mean? It doesn't mean we hate salespeople. We just don't want to talk to them until we're very, very ready to talk to them. And so the simplest way to to like meet this trend where it is and meet the market where it is, these customers of yours, is to offer self-service on your website. Specifically, and far and away, the best way to do this is having a pricing estimator on your website. Notice I didn't say something I'd give an exact quote, but a pricing estimator. Because again, the number one question people have is roughly, give me a sense, how much is this going to cost me? So for the majority of you listening to this right now, you've had to answer that question hundreds of times. Could you on your website have some type of estimator where they answer a few interactive questions, and then based on what they input, they get an output that is a range? And of course, I give you a bunch of different examples in the book as to how this works. But just this week, I had an HVAC company yesterday reach out to me. And they said, Marcus, I saw that thing on pricing estimators and I got one on my website. And you would not believe I was getting, this is true stat here, Shep. They said, I was getting 1 to 2 leads a week. Now I'm getting 3 to 5 leads a day.
Wow.
Because they're answering the most fundamental question that people have. Can I even afford this thing?
And as I think about it, I think people would be worried. What if it gives the wrong information? What if it gives a price that's completely wrong, either too high or too little? Remember what happened? I think it was Air Canada. Was it Air Canada a couple of years ago? Or one of the Canadian airlines posted some type of price, and all of a sudden people said, that's a heck of a price. I'll buy it. And it was a mistake. By the way, they honored it. Who would have thought? Maybe they did it on purpose just for the publicity, because I think they got far more publicity. But no, I joke about that. But what if it went the other way? What if it accidentally priced something completely wrong because it misinterpreted the customer? Do we need to worry about that?
The cool thing is you can, and I actually developed one of these myself called PriceGuide.ai. So I have a software that I founded that does this. It's extremely safe because you can make it as rangy as you want. And you're not giving them a quote. You're giving them a general estimate at the very beginning of the buyer's journey, which allows them to answer that fundamental question, am I even in the game? Can I even afford this? And then they move forward and you'll give them an actual quote much later in the sales process. So this is what people don't understand. We're talking about selling in a way that others aren't willing to sell. One other crazy thing I just saw, Shep, I know we got to be quick here, but we've been helping companies develop a tool where they can schedule time with a salesperson without talking to a human first. Now, what's wild, Shep, is what we found is, talk about customer experience here. When someone sees a list of salespeople, they see their images, they get to read their bios, they get to know the person, and then select the salesperson they want to work with. And this applies to lots of different businesses and lots of different industries. Closing rates every time we have developed one of these tools doubles when the prospect, the customer, can choose who as a salesperson they work with. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's like Uber for choosing your salesperson, right? So we see that a lot. So wow, people want control, man. They want control.
Yep. And number 4, be more human than others are willing to be. And I think this is, in a world of AI, becoming ever so important.
Yes. Like, for example, your CEO, he or she, do they put themselves on camera often? Are they one of the faces of your brand? Or are you just something that Getty Images could produce? Or are you in future state, some generic AI, avatars that, look perfect, but they don't scream human. And so your real people should be on your images, should be on your videos, and should be front and center, because what will not change is we're always going to buy from those we know, like, and trust. And they want to see that face. And it's your job, it's your fiduciary, in my opinion, to show it to them.
Yep. Wow. So those are the 4 pillars with great detail behind them. There's no excuse that anybody should, number 1, look at the book and dive into the book. But even just listening to this show a second time is going to be helpful, because there's tons of meat and potatoes in this. Great. We have time for one more question. You know what it is. And here's what the coincidence is. Everybody who's listened to the show knows the last question I ask is the one thing question. As we ask every guest, there's some talking points you'd like us to cover. And your last talking point was the number one thing listeners should walk away with. So I'm going to ask you that, that one final nugget of wisdom. It sounds like it's going to be a big one.
Well, let me say this. This might surprise you, but in a time of change, we need, as businesses, constants that won't change. that we can latch onto and say, that's going to be as valid in 10 years as it is today. And one thing I can assure you if you're listening to this right now, that in 10 years, you're going to be in a battle for trust. That's not going to change as a business. Trust is a principle. Facebook is going to come and go. Google's going to come and go. All these platforms are going to come and go. But trust is going to be fundamental to your business. And so when you hear ideas like we've shared today, you're like, I don't know if I could do that. First, ask yourself, but would it induce more trust? Because in the future, if you always start with that question and the answer is yes, then it's time to apply. And so you're in the business of trust, and so am I. It's the one thing that binds all of us. It's the great currency that's not going to go away. So become that voice of trust. And if you do that, your business, your organization, your brand is going to be built to last.
I love it. I love it. You know what I love about this show is that we talked a lot about high-level ideas, and then we got into the weeds with some really specifics. If you do what Marcus Sheridan is telling us to do, we can almost guarantee we're going to leave a little range in there, right? Almost guarantee that you're going to be more successful tomorrow than you are today. Marcus, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We will be back next week with another great interview. Until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.